The LA Kings take down the top team in the West, one of the top teams in the NHL. We'll talk about that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We would love you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we are on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 17 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. The Kings started a big 3-game road trip through Western Canada with a matchup against the top team in the West and the team that was tied for the most points in the NHL going into the game. That would be the Vancouver Canucks in what could be a possible first-round playoff preview. Kings once again had their 11-7 setup for this game, 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. Arthur Kaliev, once again, the lone player on the roster to be a healthy scratch. Jacob Moverara was the extra defenseman, and Cam Talbot was back in net. We weren't sure if he was going to be getting the start in this one or not, but it did turn out to be the Kings' number one goalie, and we'll talk more about him coming up. As for the game, if you missed it, a quick recap. LA jumped out to a 1-0 lead on Kevin Fiala's 24th goal of the season. Pierre-Luc Dubois with a nice setup for the primary assist. Victor Arvidsson had an assist as well. And again, Kings grabbed the 1-0 lead. Vancouver, though, would respond with a goal. We were tied at 1-1 after one period. Second period, the Kings would get a pair of goals. Blake Lizotte on a delayed penalty scored his 6th of the season to give the Kings a 2-1 lead. And then we had Jordan Spence and Anze Kopitar assisting on that goal. And then it would be Anze Kopitar scoring his 24th of the season. Adrian Kempe and Quinton Byfield with the assists. Kings had a pretty solid 3-1 lead going into the third period. Now, late in the third, the Canucks would pull their goalie for the extra attacker. They would score to make it 3-2. Then the Kings had Drew Doughty take a penalty. Again, Vancouver pulls the goalie. They had a 6-on-4 advantage. We were all getting kind of flashbacks to the end of the Tampa Bay game, but the Canucks were not able to get that next goal across. Kings hold on for the 3-2 win, beating that top team in the Western Conference and denying the Canucks a chance to clinch a playoff spot with that victory. As for the game stats in this one, again, Kings win at 3-2. You had shots on goal favoring Vancouver. Again, another one of those games where shots on goal were relatively low, 23-19. Vancouver with the advantage. Both teams were 0 for 2 on the power play. Faceoffs won dead even at 24 apiece. Block shots favored LA 13-6. Only 6 block shots for Vancouver. Hits, though, for Vancouver, 46 compared to the Kings' 24. And that was something that I certainly did notice in the game. I know some fans have been concerned about the Kings' lack of physicality and what that could mean in playoff hockey. Vancouver put some pretty big hits on the Kings, and the Kings absolutely just bounced back and end up getting the victory. So the Canucks may have been the more physical team, but the Kings get the job done and get the win to improve to 38-22-11 on the season. Kings have won 4 in a row. LA is now 8-3-1 in the month of March, 7-0 with Victor Arvidsson in the lineup this season, and 15-7-1 since they made their head coaching change. As for one word to describe the win over the Canucks, I would say earned. The Kings earned this win with some hard work and creating opportunities. The 2 goals in the second period, it could be described as lucky. The Kings maybe getting some puck luck. Blake Lizotte's goal was a shot that deflected off a Canucks player twice. Anze Kopitar's goal was a puck that was just put on net. It bounced around in the crease before the captain finally skated around the back of the net, found it, and put it in. And I know we get excited about the highly skilled goals, those goals that bring us out of our seat. And those kind of goals are a lot of fun. But it's these kind of hardworking, greasy goals that you need to get to win in the playoffs. It's hard to find time and space in the playoffs. Guys are blocking a lot of shots. You need to try and get the puck on net and shots towards the net, and hopefully good things happen because of that. So maybe the Kings are a bit lucky. Maybe they made their own luck, but getting these kinds of goals, I think, are important for the Kings. They weren't getting them earlier in the year. They've been getting them of late, and I think that is a very good thing for the Kings. As far as the 3 stars in this one, going to, I don't know if it's taking the easy way out, but going to go with the 3 goal scorers. Kevin Fiala with his goal, a great setup from Pierre-Luc Dubois, a wrist shot from the high slot. That's a very dangerous scoring area, especially for a guy like Kevin Fiala. And I think replays actually showed that there was a mix-up with the Canucks. They only had 4 players on the ice, so lots of time and space for Kevin Fiala to pick the top part of the net, and he absolutely did that. Blake Lizotte gets my number 2 star with his goal, setting up at the right face-off dot, extra attacker. Kings have been very good when getting that delayed penalty, getting the goalie off the ice and getting that extra attacker. They've been very good at getting some decent chances in that situation, and Lizotte taking advantage of that one. Did, again, go off the Canucks leg and in, or skate, but so be it. But my number 1 star is clearly Anze Kopitar for his goal and an assist. He has 9 points in his last 4 games now, 4 goals and 5 assists. Kings are 17-3-1 in games in which Anze Kopitar scores a goal this season. It was his 299th multi-point game of his career. Only Luc Robitaille and Marcel Dion have 300 or more in Kings history. Kopi now has 1,205 career points. That is top 50 in NHL history. Kopitar reaching the 40 assist mark for a franchise record 14th time, and it is absolutely great to see the captain getting hot at the right time. I've said there are a lot of important players on the Kings, but there's no player more important, in my opinion, than Anze Kopitar. When he's going, the Kings are going. He's going right now, and the Kings are going right now. What about some positives, some takeaways, some pluses from this game? Well, obviously, you win a game on the road against the top team in your conference, one of the top teams in the NHL. Obviously, that, I think, sends a statement. It sends a statement to your team, to your roster, to your fans that you can beat the top teams in the NHL. Maybe it sends a message to the rest of the league that the Kings are a team that needs to be taken seriously. And just a great road win against a solid team. And Anze Kopitar, kind of the captain, kind of talking about that victory over a team like Vancouver. And this is what Kopi had to say after the game. He said, there was not a lot of room out there, gritty, physical, emotional, all of the above. Obviously, we're getting down to the last 11 games left. It's definitely nice to have this kind of atmosphere, this kind of pressure at the end of a game where you have to hold on. We did a good job, end quote. And yeah, this is, that was the last 2 games for the Kings have had that playoff-like feel to it, and great to see the Kings getting the victories in both those games. These games have been more physical, tighter checking, not as many scoring chances, lower scoring games, not as many shots. Those games come down a lot of times to little details, and so far, so good for the Kings. Hard to be not encouraged by the results we've seen, especially the last 2 games. Hopefully the Kings can keep it going. As Kopitar said, 11 games left. And of course, a big game coming up on Thursday against the Edmonton Oilers. There is still work to be done for sure. And there's still things to be decided as far as where the Kings are going to finish in the playoffs, who they're going to face, that kind of thing. You certainly want the momentum to continue to go forward. But I think right now for the players, for the coaching staff, I think they're feeling good about where the Kings are right now. Satisfied, no, but encouraged, yes. Kings continue to do a good job on some of the top players in the NHL. JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, who's up for the Norris Trophy this year. Those players combined for just 2 points in the game against Vancouver. The other night against Tampa Bay, NHL points leader Nikita Kucherov held to just 1 assist. So we've seen in the recent past what a couple of great individual players can do in the playoffs against the Kings. So containing those types of players, very important for the Kings come playoff time, and they've done that very well, I think, in the last couple of games. As far as any negatives from this game, any minuses, I mean, the power play is still not where it needs to be. Now, the Kings did score on the delayed penalty, which is with a man advantage. It's kind of like a power play, so give them a little bit of credit there. But officially 5-on-4 in this game, 0 for 2, and they didn't look good again on the power play. I thought they looked better against Tampa Bay, but they kind of took a step back in this one. They even had an icing on a power play in the game against Vancouver. The Kings just need to focus on making it a priority on the power play just to get it set up as quickly as possible. They waste so much time retrieving a lost face-off or just trying to get it set up in the zone. At the very least, get that thing set up and make the other team burn some energy, having to work hard and skate hard to kill penalties, and maybe get some offensive momentum, even if you don't score a goal with a well-run power play. It's just not happening consistently enough for the Kings right now, even with Victor Arvidsson back. I think individually, I think it's hard not to point out one play by rookie Alex Laferriere. Now, there's a lot of plays in a hockey game, hard to pick out one and point to it, but he lost a board battle, and then his man just took it right to the net and scored. It just kind of goes to show you, with losing one battle and one key moment can come back to hurt you. Matt Roy didn't do a great job helping out either. The Kings have done a pretty good job lately of when they have made a mistake, a teammate has been there to kind of help cover up those mistakes, whether it's a goaltender or it's another player. But that was certainly a breakdown on a goal by Sam Lafferty of the Canucks. Kings have not allowed many scoring chances like that, and hopefully we don't see many more of them going forward. So lesson learned, hopefully, by Alex Laferriere about what do you do when you win those battles. And frankly, even when you get beat like that, maybe that's the time where it's not a terrible idea to take a penalty. When a guy is going straight to the net, has some room, go ahead and hook him or trip him or do what you need to do. But still, a lot more positives for the Kings. Overall, the result, very, very positive. Great win for the Kings, knocking off the top team in the West, the number one seed right now, tied for the President's Trophy, the Vancouver Canucks. Up next, going to tell you something that Rob Blake did that he should get a little credit for, and is Pierre-Luc Dubois turning it around at the right time. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. We are heading into the stretch run of the NHL season, and the Kings are looking to make that playoff push. But regardless of where the Kings are in the standings, I want to remind you that you can win big playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash playing daily fantasy hockey. All you have to do is pick whether players like Austin Matthews or Nathan McKinnon will score more or less based on Sleeper's projections for things like goals, assists, plus, minus, and more. You can pick goalies for saves as well. And not just the NHL, you can also play daily fantasy with the NBA as well. But win 100 times your bet on Sleeper by correctly picking the outcome of 8 player stats. You can win 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention, nail your picks, and you can win big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That is the code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availabilities. So if you were wondering if Cam Talbot was the Kings' number one goalie, I think we can put that to bed if it wasn't already. Back-to-back solid outings against two very good teams in Tampa Bay and now Vancouver. Talbot's won 4 starts in a row. I'll be very, very surprised if he does not get the starting assignment on Thursday in that big game against the Oilers. Hopefully that goes well. He is 9-3-1 since the coaching change. Talbot has a 2.04 goals against average over that span, and that's the most or the best of any starting goalie in the NHL. And his .930 save percentage over that span, second most among goalies in the NHL who are starters, only to Igor Shesterkin of the Rangers. So I think the question going forward is, what should Cam Talbot's workload be the rest of the season? Now, you want him to be ready and sharp for the playoffs, but also keep him as fresh as possible. I think first and foremost, you go to him and ask him his thoughts on it. I mean, nobody knows his body more than him. And I think he, being a veteran guy, this is a great chance for him to get into playoff hockey and do something he hasn't gotten a chance to do in a while. You may remember the story when he was in Minnesota. He pretty much backstopped that team in the playoffs. Then when the playoffs came around, they started Marc-Andre Fleury, and he didn't get a chance to show what he could do. So he's going to be hungry to play in the playoffs. So I think he's going to be smart about what it's going to take the rest of the way for him, again, to stay sharp, but to be rested and ready to go as well, to carry the load in the postseason. There are some easy, quote unquote, easy games coming up. There are 2 games against the Ducks. You got a game, a piece against the Sharks and the Blackhawks. I would say sit Cam Talbot for those games. Start David Rittich unless there is some big reason why you might need your number one goalie in those games. Now, that could be you need a win to, get into a position where you're having home ice in the playoffs, something like that. But even if that's the case, I think the Kings could probably win those games with their number two goalie in net as well. You do have to have the bigger picture in mind. Do what it takes to get Cam Talbot ready for the postseason. I would say maybe he's got 6-7 starts the rest of the way. Kings have 11 games left, 6 home and 5 on the road. And I know a lot is made about Pierre Dubois and what he's getting paid and how Rob Blake is, being criticized for, what he's invested in Pierre Dubois financially. And that's not unfair. However, I don't see many people going out of their way to pat Rob Blake on the back for signing Cam Talbot and David Rittich for essentially $2 million combined. I know that friend of the show, Russell Morgan, who's going to be on with us tomorrow from Hockey Royalty, posted on X, no team in the NHL is getting more value out of their goaltending position than the LA Kings are. So those offseason signings have certainly worked out in a big way for the LA Kings, and Rob Blake deserves credit for that. Speaking of Pierre Dubois, and he has certainly gotten his fair share of criticism this season, and not unfairly, but it was pointed out by me and others that maybe his lack of production during the season could be attributed to the players he's playing with. He's had guys like Alex Laferriere and Jared Anderson-Dolan on his lines this season, and I think we were all probably curious to see what his production could be if he had a Kevin Fiala, if he had a Victor Arvidsson like he has now on his wings. And the eye test so far, to me, says that Pierre Dubois is playing better hockey of late. He certainly has been a bit more productive, and I think most importantly, he's been more responsible. So Pierre-Luc Dubois had a total of 13 assists in 4.5 months of play. That was from October through February. 13 assists in 59 games. In the month of March so far, 12 games, he's got 7 assists. And in those 4.5 months, those 59 games that he played, he was a -21. And again, for those who don't know about plus minus, you get a plus for every even strength goal you're on the ice for and a minus for every even strength goal you're on against for. In March, 12 games, Pierre Dubois is a +6. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should all be doing cartwheels necessarily over these numbers, but I think maybe with some more time, right? He's gotten used to playing in the system with his teammates and maybe with another coach that is doing whatever he's doing with him, that we're seeing a better Pierre-Luc Dubois now. He certainly, I think, has not been a negative in any way recently. I think he certainly has been much more of a positive, and hopefully that continues going on into the postseason. I did want to mention real quick, we mentioned that the Kings are 7-0 with Victor Arvidsson playing this season. Hard to imagine that's a coincidence. Not suggesting they're going to go undefeated the rest of the way as long as Arvidsson is in the lineup, but he certainly makes them a better team, a deeper team. I don't think there's any question about that. In the season for the Kings, goals per game, 3.11 on the season. Goals per game with Victor Arvidsson in the lineup is at 3.85. Goals allowed per game this season, 2.54 to this point. With Victor Arvidsson in the lineup, the goals allowed per game is at 1.71. Power play percentage this season on the year for the Kings is at 22.1%. With Victor Arvidsson, it's at 30%. So I know only 7 games. We'll keep track of this, how it goes forward the rest of the way, but hard to argue again, the Kings aren't better with Victor Arvidsson in the lineup, as they should be, because he is, when healthy, a terrific energizer and creative player for the LA Kings. The Kings did gain some ground on Edmonton in the standings. They've also they've kept their place in front of Vegas as well. We'll give you the details on that here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets for your next big event. I don't, because I use Gametime, the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. I've used Gametime to buy tickets to NHL and NFL games this season, and I am a very satisfied customer. The app is easy to use and navigate. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and the best price guaranteed. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase, and I love that you can view your seat before you buy it so you know exactly the view you're going to get when you buy those tickets. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. All-in prices show you the total upfront. You know you're getting a great deal and no hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps on the app. Just download the Gametime app, Create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. LA Kings face the Edmonton Oilers, 6 p.m. Pacific time Thursday night. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of your LA Kings with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Just search LA Kings. Checking the Pacific Division standings and the Western Conference playoff picture coming out of Monday's action. There were only 2 games in the NHL on Monday, and both of them involved teams in the Western Conference playoff picture. Obviously, the Kings beating the Canucks 3-2. Golden Knights got by the Blues 2-1 in overtime. So what does that mean for the playoff picture in the West heading into Tuesday's action? Well, Edmonton is still in second place in the Pacific with 88 points. The Kings, though, with their win, moved just 1 point back of Edmonton with 87 points. They're obviously hoping to get, if they're going to face Edmonton, they obviously want to have home ice. So the Kings looking to catch the Oilers. And, of course, they go head-to-head on Thursday. So that's going to be a very big game. And it could be potentially for that second spot in the Pacific Division. For now, Nashville's got 88 points, and despite how well they've been, the Preds actually only 1 point up on the Kings for that number 1 wildcard spot should LA slip a bit at some point the rest of the way. Vegas, 85 points. They picked up a big win over the St. Louis Blues to get those 2 points. So right now it is Vegas 2 points behind the Kings for the third spot in the Pacific Division. St. Louis did pick up a point with that overtime loss to Vegas. They would obviously have wanted 2 instead of 1, but they're at 80 points. So they're the first team on the outside looking at a playoff spot. They're 5 points back of the Vegas Golden Knights. If the playoffs started today, it would be the Kings against the Edmonton Oilers in the first round of the playoffs. Now, there are a pair of big games of interest tonight for the Kings. You've got the Oilers at the Jets. Edmonton looking to distance themselves from the Kings, but they have lost 2 in a row. Now, if the Oilers lose this game and the Kings beat them on Thursday in regulation, then the Kings would take over second place in the Pacific Division. Golden Knights are at the Predators tonight. Vegas, with a win, could pull even with the Kings in points with 87 each. The Kings would still hold the tiebreaker over the Golden Knights because of regulation wins, and also they would have a game in hand on Vegas. So, again, the Golden Knights with a win over Nashville tonight would catch the Kings as far as points, but they cannot overtake the Kings at this point for that third spot in the Pacific Division. So things obviously are very, very tight. Still very, very important games to be decided. The playoff positioning can shift in a big way, one way or the other. So the Kings not only need to be playing the way they're playing right now to remain, playing well going into the playoffs, which is ultimately what you want, but also to maintain that spot where they are in the playoffs, because again, things can change literally overnight in what is coming down to be a very intriguing Western Conference playoff picture. The positioning and who's playing who, the matchups can literally change on a night-to-night basis. So things looking good, though, for the Kings because of how they're playing. Big matchup coming up on Thursday, which we're looking forward to, but it is tight. It is tight right now. Scoreboard watching certainly is going on for the LA Kings and their fans. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Wednesday, I mentioned it earlier, but Russell Morgan of Hockey Royalty going to stop by to discuss how the Kings are playing of late. On Thursday, another special guest, Reed Wilkins from CHED Radio in Edmonton, part of the Oilers radio broadcast, going to join us to talk about and preview that big Kings-Oilers matchup, kind of give us his thoughts on what's been going on with Edmonton and how he thinks that they match up against the Kings. Friday, we'll obviously recap that big Kings-Oilers game and have another Kings fan feedback show. Hope you will join us for some big shows coming up the rest of the week. You want to get a hold of this show for any reason, including getting questions in for comments on the feedback show, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com. If you're watching on YouTube, we love it when you post your comments in the comments section, which definitely helps the algorithm. We'd also love for you to stay connected with us on social media, on X, on Twitter, on Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, go Kings, go.